Razer just broke the internet with this. It's their new keyboard which basically has null bind scripts built in, now giving you perfect non-overlapping inputs. In other words, you can now have the fastest counter strafes imaginable and also the most insane AD spamming that you've ever seen. Honestly, I thought this would get banned or rolled back after my first video, but now they're not the only one. Wooting now also has this feature. Basically, they put out a poll saying,
chat said that.
we do this as well? A lot of you guys said yes, and they did it within 24 hours. Not only did they do it, they made it available for every single one of their Wooting keyboards, even the first one from 7 years ago. I still have pretty mixed feelings about this feature, but I mean, that customer support and product support is just on a different level. So super quick recap of what we're talking about here. This works by always prioritizing your last pressed input between two keys. So if you put it on your A and D key, for example, you'll never get an overlapping movement input ever again. Most FPS games really benefit from the precise timing of those A and D strafing inputs if you want the cleanest and fastest movement. But now that skill is no longer required. You can just press one key after the other and always be moving in that last press direction without worrying.
Guys, this came out 1 day ago.
About any overlap at all. CS in particular, I mean, you can now get perfect counter strafes with absolutely no worrying about the timing at all. You could not write a script or program that could do this faster. It can also be exploited in a way to do the most ridiculous AD spamming that you've ever seen by holding one key and just tapping the other. And Wooting's implementation, which is called SOCD, is mostly the same. At the moment, it's still in beta, which is completely understandable, but yeah, I loaded this onto the Wooting 60, took it for a spin, and after playing on the Razer for the past week, this, for the most part, feels the same. Everything that I was able to do with Razer Snap Tap, the counter strafing with no error at all, the AD spamming, all of that felt identical between these two keyboards, except for one part. It's not a huge deal, but on the Razer, if you press down one direction, then press the other, which activates.
Chat, what if you do this, chat, for fighting games? You make the board that people use, and you put that in it.
Activates Snap Tap, Rapid Trigger becomes deactivated for that initial key, which means that you aren't able to get another input on that key until you fully release it. It's a very specific sequence which most people won't run into, which is why I didn't bother mentioning it in that initial video, but it is the main difference between Razer Snap Tap and Wooting's SOCD. Wooting's implementation, on the other hand, is flawless. You're always getting that last pressed input no matter what. It does also have a couple more options like priority of one key over the other, but long story short, if you're playing FPS games, just enable SOCD,
for surfing
priority,
too,
and then throw that on A and D. You're also able to have multiple iterations of this on other pairs of keys if you want to for some reason, and if your game somehow benefits from that. Now, as for which keyboard here is faster in terms of latency, the Razer or the Wooting, well, they're the same. I've got a pair of solenoids here which simulates the exact same counter strafe in CS2. Basically, we want to see whichever keyboard can get back to full accuracy the fastest.
There's sort of engineer.
I'll save you all the details, but basically there's a couple of milliseconds between them, which is within margin of error. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that gaming keyboards have changed forever. I mean, after I made the first video with Razer Snap Tap, I honestly thought there was a possibility that tournament officials could take a second look at this and say, hang on a second, this is actually pretty busted and it's not allowed.
Yeah, but how do you regulate that?
Actually pull back the feature, because in CS in particular, this thing is.
How do you regulate that? You check counter strafes and you check amount of MS in between inputs, whatever, every time. And then you say if it's under a certain amount on average, this guy's probably cheating.
Kinda busted. It just completely eliminates the skill ceiling of what is the most important movement mechanic in the game. Games that don't have counter-strafe mechanics or instant direction changes like Overwatch, these keyboards are a lot more harmless. Call of Duty, Apex, Battlefield, you will see some benefit there since you're no longer overlapping inputs, but yeah, it's nothing like the physics-breaking stuff that you can do in Overwatch. So look, if you take these games even somewhat seriously, like you queue rank and you somewhat care about the outcome, these two keyboards are like the most pay-to-win upgrades that you could ever own. I mean, it's almost not even...
Alright. I mean, chat, it might become the industry standard, so it is what it is. You check for any amount of overlap. Yeah, that's what I thought. Makes sense. What else, chat? What else we got there, chat? Any news? Anything important going on in the world, chat? Oh, this looks interesting.